Hi guys, today we're going to be painting this floral photo. These are some flowers that I received. They're really beautiful and a lot of you guys wanted me to paint them, so I'm going to show you how I would approach that. Let's go. So to start, for the initial layer, I have got out some Van Dyke Brown, transparent brown iron oxide, some quinacridone magenta. I have some fluorescent orange ink, some transparent red iron oxide, which is a high flow acrylic, and some fluorescent pink. I'll be using these to start my painting, and I will be adding in some more colors as we move into the more rendering part, but right now this is what I'm going to be using, and some water, a couple of brushes, and some paper towel. This paper I'm using today is oil paper. I have gone and the other day went through and just popped in some drops with this high flow acrylic and some water, and I wasn't sure what I was going to use this for, but I decided I'd like to do the flowers on this, give it a go, and so I'm going to be using acrylic and then I may be putting oil on at the end depending if I'd like to do that or not, but for now you can just use acrylic on this. That's totally fine. To start, I'm not going to wet it a lot. I'm just wanting to get it a little bit wet because I was hoping to do a little bit of subtraction once I put some of the paint in, and I don't want it to dry too fast. So this little bit of wet on the paper might help it not dry so fast, hopefully. So I just want to get some kind of background going on here. Now I'm looking at the center of these flowers, and I'm going to want to stick them slightly to the side because you want to avoid sticking things straight in the middle. So we're going to put them slightly to the side, probably have one kind of going off, and then this big one around here somewhere. So we'll just go for it, but I'm trying to get that darker bit in the middle first. So somewhere around here-ish. Now I'm going to grab some paper towel and I'm going to try and pull out some of these flower shapes. Give this a go. It's really drying quite fast, but that's okay. I mean, it might not work. Yeah, it's drying already. No, I'm going to boycott that. And I'm just going to get a thin tip brush and I'm just going to more draw it in, I think. Sometimes these things don't really work out, but that's okay. So I'm holding my brush at the end of the handle. This just allows you to kind of be a little bit more looser with your drawings and not get too detailed. I don't want to be detailed here. I'm just trying to get some basic shapes where I think that these flowers will go. We don't have to be perfect here. Flowers are very forgiving. So I'm literally just doing lines here. I'm not really putting in any petals so much at the moment, just some basic information to go off moving forward. I'm going to make this a little shorter, this vase, because I don't want my vase to finish here because it will be too close to the edge. It wants to be a little more up. Even that might be a little low. We'll make it work, it's okay. I might even get that to reach a bit further up. Okay, I'm just going to dry that and then we'll get moving with a bit more colour. So this colour I've got here is some of the fluorescent pink and the transparent red iron oxide. I'm just going to block these in pretty crudely like this. You can go over the lines a little bit, you know, because it's going to be a pretty expressive painting. So I'm going to pick up some more of this darker colour. I'm looking at my source and just picking a base colour for each flower pretty loosely. We're just blocking in some shapes at the moment. I'm grabbing some Van Dyke Brown just to deepen this area again. I'm not fully blocking it in though, I'm just going to drag my brush across a little and let it pick up the tooth of the paper. Grabbing a little bit of the transparent brown iron oxide. Such beautiful colours. These are new ones that I've gotten from Golden. I'm starting to bring in a lot more golden paints and some of the browns are just really pretty. I'm liking them a lot. I'm just adding some fluorescent pink on the end there, just because I felt like it. That's the thing, you just intuitively go along, look at your source, and just look at what you've got on your palette. You know, think about the colours. We're thinking about the colours that are at the very back at the moment, the very back colours in our source. We're ignoring all the highlights. Adding on some magenta. We want to move our colours about within our painting. So what we have on our brush, we want to put it elsewhere within the painting, and this creates this really beautiful connection between all the subjects, in this case our flowers. So as the opaque layers go on, you'll become a bit more true to the color of the flower that you see in your source. At the moment, we're dealing more with the inner parts of the flower, so more shadow colors. This is a bit of fluorescent orange. Touch there, touch there, and you want this to go off. You don't want it to be sitting uncomfortably close to the edge. You want it to go off or have it at least back here. If it gets too close to the edge, it has this really uncomfortable feeling. Of course, you can be a bit more expressive in the background as well while you are doing this. A bit of fun. Now some other colours that I am going to add to the palette are some titanium white, jaune brilliant and yellow ochre. And we are going to start on the opaque layers. Now I need to start working faster because these paints are drying so quickly, but that's not a bad thing because it means you don't faff about and overthink stuff. I'm mixing some colour. I've got some fluorescent pink, white, magenta, a touch of the brown iron oxide, or maybe a bit too much there. It's like a dusty pink in a way, which could work for there. We are looking to add in a bit more information. Sometimes I don't know what color to go for, so I just go for one, and if it doesn't kind of look right, then I just wash my brush and try again. A little bit of the white and a little bit of the jaune brilliant. And let's see how we go here. I'm starting to mimic the shapes that I see. This brush really needs replacing, like the bristles at the end make it not very good, but I can use it for this, it's okay. So yeah, it doesn't look super great, but don't forget the process. Most paintings start out not super great. It will just get better and better as we go along and as we add more details in. I might take that one darker. You can always go back steps as well. Did not love that step. I am building the midtones now. I'm referring closely to my source for direction on the shapes I'm trying to emulate. As for the colours, I'm mixing what I have on my palette. aiming to create the colors that I see in my source beneath the highlights on each flower. And I'm also trying not to cover up all those deep shadowed areas that we just did. We want to let it poke through where it does in our source. We are working towards refinement here. You can see we are getting tighter as we move through this piece. I'm still not too worried about how correct my colors are. I always have glazing in my bag of tricks which can easily tint a color to better reflect the hue I'm going for. Which I'm going to start bringing in now. I dry the painting thoroughly before I proceed with this, otherwise it will just smear and become a big old mess. For this glaze, I am mixing the clear painting medium with some fluorescent pink, and I'm just going to run it over a few areas to brighten them back up. I mix a little of the fluorescent orange into that mix and bring it through where I see more orange tones in my source photo. Now I'm heading back through with some Van Dyke Brown to refine some of the dark areas that I see are missing. It can be quite difficult with these types of flowers that have quite a lot going on, like a tight pattern, in regards to how far do we go and still keep that less is more idea. It's a feel it through kind of thing, I think, and a tip here would be to keep away from the tiny brushes, I'd say. I'm looking at getting more details in as I go along here also. I am keeping those buds that are more in the background quite simple. Anything that I define with sharp lines is going to come forward, so we need to be selective as to what parts of our subject we want to pull forward and what parts we want to sit back. I just love the look of brush strokes. They look so beautiful stacked next to each other. There is just something about it, isn't there? And slight shifts in color. Ooh, love, love, love. I'm coming through with the glaze here again, tinting the colour but leaving that more noticeable detail which we have just achieved with the highlights beneath. I don't show it here, but I am constantly stopping and drying my painting between these layers. I figured we all know how to use a hairdryer and what it looks like, so I didn't feel the need to include it here, but do remember to dry your piece in between your layers. It is so very important. Now I'm starting to attend to the background, and this bouquet is about to really pop out. This is not plain white I am using here, but white that is slightly tinted with the colour I have on my palette. Each time I head back to get more white, I'm adding in a smidge of a different colour. I am being careful not to fully colour block out the underpainting. I want this to poke through in parts. I just want to lighten the background to allow these flowers to stand out and to be the focal point. I am not adding any water to my paint. This is just pure paint here. When I do wash my brush out at this stage of the painting, I am drying it thoroughly with a paper towel. We don't want water in our paint at this stage. I went a little too green there, and I simply amend it by going over it with a better fitting colour. I need to be mindful when I'm attending to the glass jar here. I need to create the look that it's a clear jar with reflection, and to do that I simply drag my brush lightly along the paper, picking up the tooth of the paper with my paint. I am paying close attention to my source photo to see where calls for a thinner highlight and where I need a more block highlight to make this jar look realistic. Heading back to these flowers, I am coming through with another round of light opaques to further refine. This square tip brush is working really well here, creating these petals. I can move it around and get a variety of thin and thick lines. Switching to a thin tipped brush to start getting in some more finer details on this white pom-pom flower. Although it is a thin tipped brush, it's not a tiny brush, so it's still on the bigger side. This will stop me from going too far with the details. And I'm holding the handle quite far back, which takes some of the control away. I don't want it to look too tight, and losing some control helps with that. This is predominantly white that I'm using here to bring in some more finer details. I will be coming over this white with a glaze later on. I do this so that when I do glaze over the top, these highlights really stand out. I found this flower the most difficult to paint. The whole flower is showing and there is so many different tints and little petals. It was a challenge for me for sure. I am now mixing together some transparent brown iron oxide and magenta with some clear painting medium to create a nice burnt orange glaze, and I bring it through anywhere I see that tint within my sauce. When we do multiple layers of glazing, adding detail and then glazing again, and repeating this over and over, we can achieve amazing depth in our work as well as colour richness. Glazing is something I always use in my work, and I would be lost without it. Pick and choose where you glaze. Avoid just glazing the whole area again. Change your glazing colours and be intentional about where you apply the glazes. Use glazing as a tool to create beautiful colour transitions as well as depth. Training your eye to see like an artist is something that has helped me a lot in my work. Really look at the color variations in your source. A white flower is never just white, it has all different variations of white due to shadows and reflections of color from what's around it. We can create a really balanced and well knitted together piece by bringing through the colors we use in our subjects through into the background. It creates a connection, a relationship between the two instead of a this and a that type of feel. Now I'm going to be working with pure titanium white and just a touch of colour, and I'm going to focus on bringing in the details. I will be glazing over this, but I am really wanting to bring in some more structure quickly, and this is the best way I know how to do that. I'm going in slightly darker for the parts of the highlight that are light, but not as a sharp highlight. When I glaze over the top to correct the color, the value of these highlights will remain the same. I hope that makes sense. Switching my brush to a small fill bit, a rounded edge tipped brush to do these not so detailed, more rounded petals. Switching brushes in general is a great idea as every brush leaves a different size and style of brush stroke, and having a variety of brush strokes in your work helps to stop your painting look repetitive and a bit same. I'm focusing in on which petals are standing out the most as to which ones I want to sharpen and brighten. This part of the video is sped up 2 times, so in real time I am moving quite slowly and really focusing and being intentional about what I'm painting. We are now officially in the building our highlights stage. My favourite part of the painting when what you have been working on really starts to come to life. We have kind of lost this other little bud, so I'm just going to repaint it in there. I'm heading back with a transparent red iron oxide glaze. I'm going to start to bring the colour back into this piece. Just look at that magic. Back to building those highlights. Glazing is a really great technique when painting animals as well. Feathers or fur, this highlighting, glazing back approach really helps create realistic full fur or feathers. I used to paint in a hyperrealism style, and when I discovered glazing and using it in this way, it completely changed my work. I am wanting to clean up the dark areas again and sharpen in certain areas. I'm using a mixture of transparent brown iron oxide and Van Dyke brown for this. Notice I have not pulled out a black. I try and create my darker colours using colour, not black. Sometimes I will mix a little black into another colour to darken it, so it definitely has its place, but I avoid using it solely on its own, and the reason is it's quite a dead looking colour on its own. Adding colour creates a more alive and rich dark. Whoops, I got some dark on my white flower. Never mind, I'll leave it for now and I'll figure it out later. adding in some magenta. You can start to see the importance of contrast here as we move through these darker areas. This piece has become quite light overall, and now by going through and focusing on the darks again, it has transformed the piece. If you have been wondering where the green is at, well, here it comes. And I'm going to bring it in as a glaze. Surprise! All right, time to bring in a little mark making here. I'm using Caran d'Ache crayons for this. Now I have been inspired by this little whoopsie mark I made earlier, and I'm going to play off this here. I'm using my paint scraper and I've put on some of the darker paint combination I have on my palette. I'm just going to scrape it down my paper to make some interesting visual texture. I'm not a fan of that scratch mark, so I'm going to use a dry paintbrush to brush that over a little bit. Back with paintbrush in hand, I am back to building highlights. I'm loading my brush with some Van Dyke Brown to ground this vase a bit more. I'm adding some blue black indigo to the palette with some clear painting medium, and I'm going to start bringing this through the background. I chose this colour as it's a complement to the orange tones in the piece and has a grey tone to it, which is a neutral colour, so it's not going to fight for the attention. It is very light because I'm using just a touch of the paint with mainly glazing medium. Now I'm adding some Van Dyke Brown to the mix, and I'm coming through again to darken it a bit. Grabbing some paper towel to wipe a little bit off here and there. I mix some olive green and titanium white together to bring through some more opaque paint through the background, adding more visual texture, interest, and movement. Back to the flowers, and I'm adding a fluorescent orange glaze over these highlights on this orange flower at the top. And a little touch here and there throughout the rest of the bouquet. Now I have a mix of yellow ochre and the transparent red iron oxide, and I'm bringing that through this orange flower. Magenta glaze, now with some transparent red iron oxide and titanium white. I am adding another layer of highlights. Switching brushes to allow me a little bit more control. I understand this is definitely a process. It takes time, but all good things do. And I am sure there are a multitude of other ways to approach this, but this is the way that I have discovered works the best for me. I hope you are not asleep. We are getting down to the final details now, guys. Just going to turn this around for a minute to get these petals in a little easier. A little bit more of that transparent red iron oxide. A little olive green. And one more touch of the lightest parts with some white. And of course, we need to tint them orange so they're not just white. And we're done. Yay! Now to de-tape. I really hope you enjoyed that, guys. I hope you picked up something new and are inspired to create some florals. Thank you so much for watching.